Welcome to our 2020 Predictions, Perceptions, and Expectations webinar. This is the first for the Marketing Society in these challenging times, and we're here with Mick Gordon, the Managing Director of IPSOS, so we appreciate them hosting this session. So with that, let's get things going. Mick, so what do we expect to see and hear today?
Okay, thank you, Darren. So thank you very much for the time today, for joining us. We're going to look at perceptions of 2019. We're going to have a look at behavior of affluent consumers in Hong Kong and Singapore. We're going to have a look at things that worry the world and also some predictions for 2020. Then we're going to take a look at the difference between the perceptions and the realities around a particular issue. And finally take a look at COVID-19 and some data that we've collected recently on that. So we'll start by looking at how the world felt 2019 went. And the short answer is much of the world felt that 2019 was not a good year. As you can see here, looking at many countries across the world, the majority of those respondents said 2019 was a bad year. Perhaps a little more encouraging for us in Asia. Many of the Asian markets, which you can see in the lighter colour, were the more optimistic markets. However, Hong Kong, not surprisingly, was pretty pessimistic and negative about 2019. It was a tough year for all of us, those of us who've lived through it, and that's reflected in the responses. When we asked how do people feel about the year for them and their family, we saw very similar patterns. But something that we will see as a bit of a theme going through this whole presentation, which is that actually people tend to see things a little bit more positively from a personal perspective than from an overall perspective, and more pessimistic about the externalities than the personal experience. But nevertheless, you see again, Hong Kong pretty pessimistic, Singapore much more optimistic about the experience of 2019. What we can see is that when asked, how do you think your market is it going in the right direction? What we saw was that 60% of the population feel that it's not going in the right direction. About 30 plus percent think it is going in the right direction. And when we look at the reasons, we can see there are a number of reasons around poverty and social issues, social inequality, unemployment, crime and violence, financial and political crime, and healthcare. Looking at it by a country or market basis, the striking thing is that most countries are pretty pessimistic, but there are one or two significant outliers, the most significant being China, incredibly optimistic. 90% believe that China was on the right track at the end of last year. We can speculate, and we have some data that indicates that perhaps there's a slight more negative perspective in China right now because of the experience of COVID-19. But we've also seen, as we've tracked this over the recent years, that China is consistently very positive in its outlook. And another market, for similar reasons, that tends to be very positive is India. A huge opportunity and growth.
So I think it's interesting also that how at 90%, that is extremely high. And obviously after the COVID process, I imagine this is still an underlying belief, right?
Yes, I think there will be.